In the sun-scorched lands, beyond the whispering dunes, there lay the kingdom of Azoria, a civilization that shimmered like a mirage and was just as elusive to outsiders. Its people were known for their intricate sand sculptures and their deep reverence for the ancestral grounds, a vast, sacred plateau at the heart of their kingdom. Our story begins not with a king or a warrior, but with Kale, a young cartographer whose hands were more accustomed to drawing maps than holding a sword. Kale was quiet, observant, and possessed a curiosity that often got him into trouble with the elders. His greatest fascination was the ancestral grounds, a place no one was allowed to tread upon, for it was said the spirits of their forefathers rested there, guarding the kingdom's soul. One year, the rains failed to arrive. The life-giving river, the Serpent's Vein, dwindled to a muddy trickle. The crops withered, and the vibrant markets of Azoria grew quiet with whirring. The elders performed the ancient rites, praying for water, but the sky remained a merciless, cloudless blue. Despair began to settle over the land like a shroud of dust. As the kingdom weakened, a neighboring warlord, Gorgon, saw his opportunity. His armies, known as the Stone Fists, began massing at the border, their intentions as clear as the dry riverbed. Azoria had always relied on its natural defenses and the Serpent's Vein, but now it was vulnerable. During a council of elders, the high priestess declared their fate was sealed. "The spirits are displeased," she announced, her voice heavy with sorrow. "We have lost their favor. We must prepare for the end." But Kale, who had been tasked with archiving old scrolls, refused to accept this. He had found something strange, a series of ancient maps, far older than any he had ever seen. They depicted the ancestral grounds not as a flat plateau, but as a complex network of lines and symbols that he didn't understand. Tucked within the scrolls was a cryptic passage: "When the serpent sleeps, the sunken heart must beat again." The key is in the stars, reflected on the ground. Driven by a desperate hope, Kale decided to do the unthinkable. Under the cover of a moonless night, he packed a small bag with water, dried dates, and his drawing tools, and snuck out of the city. He was going to the ancestral grounds. It was a sacrilege punishable by exile. But the thought of his people perishing was a far greater fear. As he stepped onto the Forbidden's plateau, the air grew still and heavy. The ground was hard-packed clay, crisscrossed with faint, barely visible lines that seemed to glow with a soft, ethereal light under the starlight. Kale pulled out the ancient map. He realized the lines on the ground perfectly matched the constellations in the night sky. He wasn't walking on sacred dirt, he was walking on a map. A massive, kingdom-sized map. He followed the lines that corresponded to the brightest constellation, which the Azorians called the Water-Bearer. The path led him to the center of the plateau, where a single, monolithic stone stood, covered in weathered carvings. The carvings were not of spirits or gods, but of gears, levers, and intricate mechanical diagrams. This wasn't a tomb, it was a manual. Below the diagrams was a circular indentation, the same size as a ceremonial disc that every Azorian elder carried. Kale remembered his grandfather, a former council member, and his disc, which he had inherited. It was said to hold the wisdom of the ages. Kale had always thought it was just a symbolic trinket. He pulled it from his pouch. Its metallic surface was etched with patterns that mirrored the stars. With trembling hands, he placed the disc into the indentation. There was a low click, and a deep hum vibrated through the ground beneath his feet. The monolithic stone split apart, revealing a staircase descending into darkness. A cool, damp breeze, smelling of wet earth and metal, wafted up to greet him. He lit his small oil lamp and began his descent. He found himself in a colossal chamber, far larger than any building in Azoria. It was filled with technology beyond his wildest imagination. Huge, metallic conduits, like the veins of a giant, snaked across the ceiling and walls. In the center of the room was a massive, spherical device made of a shimmering, unknown metal. It pulsed with a soft, blue light, the source of the humming sound. This was the sunken heart. He realized the truth in a dizzying rush. His ancestors weren't priests or mystics, they were brilliant engineers. The ancestral grounds weren't a graveyard. They were the control center for a sophisticated irrigation system that drew water from a vast underground aquifer. The spirits weren't supernatural beings. They were a story created to protect this vital, complex technology from being misused or forgotten. Over generations, the story had become the truth, and the knowledge was lost. The system had simply gone dormant. Using the diagrams on the monolith above, Kale began to understand the controls. The sphere was a power source, and a series of large, lever-like switches redirected the flow. It was a daunting task, like a child trying to operate a giant's machine. He spent hours tracing the conduits, matching symbols, and carefully testing the levers. Finally, he found the master control, a large wheel that seemed to regulate the entire system. The cryptic passage echoed in his mind: when the serpent sleeps, the sunken heart must beat again. This was it. With all his strength, he turned the wheel. A thunderous roar echoed through the chamber as the sunken heart glowed brighter. The ground shook, and the humming intensified into a powerful, rhythmic thrumming, like a colossal heartbeat. Water began to surge through the giant conduits. Kale scrambled back to the surface just as dawn was breaking. He looked towards his home and gasped. From the base of the plateau, water was gushing forth, flowing into the dry channel of the serpent's vein. The river was being reborn. By the time he returned to the city, the news had already spread. The river was flowing again. People were cheering, dancing in the streets, their despair washed away by the miraculous return of the water. Kale went straight to the Council of Elders. He laid out the ancient maps and told them everything he had found. At first, they were shocked and angry at his sacrilege, but the evidence was undeniable. The river flowed, and the magic was the work of their own forgotten ancestors. The high priestess looked at Kale, her eyes filled not with anger, but with a newfound respect. "You broke our most sacred law," she said, her voice clear and strong. "But you did so not out of disrespect, but out of courage and a love for your people. You chose truth over tradition, and in doing so, you have saved us all." Just then, a scout burst in, reporting that Gorgon's army had halted. Seeing the river miraculously restored, they believed the gods of Azoria were protecting the kingdom and had retreated in fear of divine retribution. Kale did not become a king or a warrior. He became a teacher. He helped his people rediscover their lost heritage, blending the wisdom of their engineering past with their reverence for the present. The ancestral grounds were no longer forbidden. They became a place of learning, where the children of Azoria were taught that the greatest magic lies not in the stars above, but in the ingenuity and courage found within humanity itself. The kingdom of Azoria flourished, its people understanding that truth can sometimes be buried beneath layers of stories, and that true destiny isn't something you wait for. It's something you build with your own two hands, guided by the courage to seek what is real. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more tales from the forgotten corners of history.